Today, we're diving straight into the heart of American automotive legend, the engines that never say die. We've narrowed it down to 12 all-time classics that earn their stripes by running longer, working harder, and refusing to quit. From early V8 icons that brought power to the people, to rock-solid inline-sixes that still run like tractors, these are engines woven into our national DNA. Whether you're a die-hard gearhead or just appreciate a no-nonsense workhorse under the hood, stick around. Number 2 is so tough it's practically immortal. Let's fire them up and get rolling. 12. Mopar 5.7 Hemi 5.8. When Chrysler revived the Hemi name in the early 2000s, many old-timers raised an eyebrow. After all, the original 426 Hemi of the 60s was legendary, so how could a modern 5.7 live up to that? Surprisingly well, as it turned out, this engine melded classic Hemi combustion chamber design with modern engineering. Found in Ram trucks, Chargers, Challengers, and more, the 5.7 Hemi balanced efficiency, durability, and that unmistakable growl. Owners regularly report well over 200,000 miles with minimal fuss. And it's not unusual to see these engines hauling trailers, plowing through construction jobs, and lighting up highways day after day. Critics might say the modern Hemi isn't the true Hemi of old and point to occasional valve train ticks. Still, those mild complaints don't overshadow its solid track record. While not quite the mythic beast its ancestor was, the 5.7 has earned a spot in America's Reliability Hall of Fame by proving you can have both power and longevity. It's a reminder that old-school muscle spirit can thrive in a modern package, rumbling away confidently under the hood of everything from a family cruiser to a street machine. 11. Ford Flathead. 8. To understand how Americans fell in love with the V8, look no further than the original Ford Flathead. Introduced in 1932, it brought 8-cylinder excitement to ordinary folks who'd previously only dreamed of such power. Before this, V8s were expensive and rare. Henry Ford's vision changed that, placing a robust, simple, and endlessly tinkered with engine into millions of cars, hot rods, and pickup trucks across the country. While its horsepower may seem tame by today's standards, in its time the Flathead was pure innovation. It spurred a culture of backyard mechanics who learned to coax out more speed with a few basic tools. Farmers, delivery drivers, and adventurous teens found it ran reliably on minimal maintenance, surviving wartime, economic turmoil, and countless dusty backroads. Critics note it ran hot and lacked the durability of later overhead valve designs, but the Flathead still earned its stripes as a dependable companion. From jalopies racing on the dry lakes to family sedans shuttling kids to school, the Flathead changed the face of American motoring. Its simple design made it both approachable and durable. Even now, when you hear one rumble to life at a vintage car show, you're listening to American history. 10. AMC Jeep 4.0 inline-six. The AMC Jeep 4.0 inline-six is the kind of engine that laughs at the apocalypse. If you owned a 90s Jeep Cherokee or Wrangler, chances are you learned that this old-school straight six was a faithful partner. Introduced by American Motors and carried on by Chrysler, it delivered a hearty blend of torque, simplicity, and shrug-it-off reliability that put it on a pedestal for off-roaders and daily drivers alike. No, it's not a high-revving powerhouse, but it's as tough as a nail hammered into oak. Owners report astronomical mileage with nothing more than regular oil changes. Hot summers, muddy trails, icy winters. This engine just keeps ticking, often outlasting the sheet metal and the electronics around it. Some say you could fill the crankcase with peanut butter and it would still start the next morning. Not recommended, but you get the point. Critics might complain that by the time it was discontinued, the 4.0 felt archaic. But for fans, that's part of its charm. It's simple and rugged, a relic of a time when engines were built to last, not just impress a spec sheet. The AMC/Jeep 4.0 remains a legend among those who value reliability over modern frills. 9. Chrysler 225 slant-six. The Chrysler 225 slant-six, nicknamed the Leaning Tower of Power, is what happens when an engine decides it's more comfortable reclining at an angle. Introduced in 1960, it powered Plymouth Valiants, Dodge Darts, and numerous Mopar machines for decades. This unusual design improved intake efficiency and left room for accessories. But the real star quality was its stubborn refusal to die. Durable internals and a simple, low-stress design meant it could run longer than your patience. Farmers, commuters, and first-time drivers all trusted the slant-six to start every morning, even if the car's body rusted around it. Sure, it never lit up drag strips, and you wouldn't write home about its horsepower, but it delivered something more precious: the confidence that it would keep running mile after mile. Some car snobs dismiss it as too utilitarian, just a plain Jane 6 that won't win beauty contests. But that misses the point. While others brag about peak output or fancy features, the slant-six stayed true to its mission: get you there without complaint. Its reputation for longevity still resonates, proving that sometimes reliability outshines all the flashy extras in the world. 8. Buick 3800 V6. The Buick 3800 V6 is an engine that quietly earned respect by delivering rock-solid dependability to millions of everyday Americans. Originally known as the Fireball 5.6, it evolved into the 3800 and powered a huge lineup of GM vehicles, from family sedans to coupes. While it might never have had the flashy image of a big V8, it more than made up for that with longevity that would make a marathon runner blush. For decades, the 3800 balanced decent power, solid fuel economy, and a willingness to soldier on well past the point where other engines would be crying uncle. Mechanics loved it because parts were abundant and fixes were straightforward. Owners loved it because it just kept going, often racking up huge mileage totals without major drama. If dull reliability could take human form, it might look like a Buick 3800, waving a wrench and grinning modestly. Some enthusiasts dismissed it as pedestrian and not particularly exciting. Fair enough, but excitement doesn't always pay the bills or get you to work on time. The 3800 may not star in your dream car fantasies, but when it comes to everyday trustworthiness, it's a genuine American classic. 7. Oldsmobile Rocket V8. In 1949, Oldsmobile introduced the Rocket V8, and suddenly the future roared to life. One of the first overhead valve V8s, the Rocket ushered in a new era of performance, reliability, and engineering sophistication. It put Oldsmobile on the map, earning a reputation for delivering strong, smooth power and staying in one piece long after the competition stumbled. These engines didn't just make waves among the Sunday drivers. They inspired hot rodders who found the Rocket responded eagerly to modifications. Through the 50s and 60s, this V8 powered family cars, muscle machines, and custom rods, creating a legacy that would endure far beyond Oldsmobile's eventual disappearance as a brand. Critics might say later versions lost some of their magic amid emissions regulations and changing times, but the Rocket name still evokes respect. While it may not receive the spotlight as often as some other legends, the Rocket V8 remains a pillar of reliability and early American innovation. It showed that a homegrown V8 could be both fast and dependable, leaving a distinct mark on America's highways and drag strips. The Rocket taught us that engines could be both thrilling and steadfast, a combination that never goes out of style. 6. Ford Modular 4.6 V8. When Ford introduced the overhead cam 4.6 modular V8 in the early 1990s, fans of old pushrod mills weren't exactly throwing parades. But give this engine credit, it proved that modern design could be reliable too. It might not have the hot rod aura of a 1960s big block, but the 4.6 quickly established itself as a champion of long-haul durability. Police departments and taxi fleets leaned on the 4.6 in their Crown Victorias, racking up enormous mileage with routine maintenance. In everything from Mustangs to F-150S, the modular V8 marched onward, shrugging at high mileages and heavy use. Sure, some old-timers grumbled it wasn't as easy to wrench on, and that overhead cams added complexity. But real-world results spoke louder than bench racing doubts. While not as romantic as a carbureted classic, the 4.6 demonstrates that reliability can evolve with the times. High mileage examples still roam the streets, offering a nod to skeptics who once doubted them. In an era where technology advances quickly, the Ford Modular showed that a modern engine could be just as dependable and enduring as the legends that came before it. Before we move on to the next one in the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. Thanks to all of you who do. 5. GM LS V8. The GM LS V8 is the modern small block that became a superstar swap candidate for hot rodders across the nation. Debuting in 1997, it took what was great about Chevy's old-school design and infused it with 21st century efficiency. Lighter, stronger, and surprisingly straightforward, the LS could make big power, sip reasonably at the pump, and run reliably for ages. It didn't take long before enthusiasts pulled LS engines from junk Camaros and trucks to give new life to classic muscle cars, old pickups, or even rival brand project cars. Durable internals and proven metallurgy mean these engines handle abuse at the track just as easily as they handle grocery runs. Sure, a few picky purists complain that the LS has become too popular, too trendy. They say everyone swaps in an LS, making it the vanilla ice cream of engine upgrades. Yet that's the point. The LS earned its reputation by working hard and rarely letting owners down. Whether in a showroom fresh Corvette or a battered old Chevy truck, it has proven time and again that reliability doesn't have to come at the expense of fun. It's a modern icon that keeps the American V8 tradition alive and well. 4. Ford 302. Windsor V8, the Ford 302 Windsor, also known as the 5.0, was the heartbeat of countless blue oval machines. Arriving in the 60s and persisting well into the 90s, the 302 earned a reputation as the go-to small block V8 for everyone from weekend racers to moms hauling groceries. It proved itself a master of balance, marrying decent power, good economy, and a knack for running well beyond its intended lifespan. Tune it up, replace the basics, and it would keep humming like a seasoned baritone singer. Owners relished that parts were plentiful and affordable. Carbed or fuel-injected in Mustangs or Broncos, it maintained a steady beat. Critics might say later fuel injection systems sapped some old-school charm and that the engine lacked the radical flash of rival engines. But when it comes to blending reliability with all-around usefulness, the 302 stands tall. For many Americans, the 5.0 badge on the fender still conjures memories of Fox body Mustangs tearing up the streets, or trusty F-150S shouldering heavy loads. Long after other engines cried uncle, the 302 kept marching. It was not just an engine. It was an approachable friend that made you believe in Ford's knack for dependable V8s3. Chevy Stovebolt 235, inline-six, Chevrolet Stovebolt 6, particularly the 235 version, was the anchor that kept America's driveways full in a time when reliability was a household necessity. Debuting in the 1920s and refined over decades, the Stovebolt powered millions of cars and trucks, becoming a vital part of daily life. It earned its nickname from its valve cover bolts that resembled stove bolts, fitting given how steadily it cooked along mile after mile. This simple overhead valve inline-six ran smoothly and quietly, surviving dust bowls, economic hardships, and long unpaved roads. Farmers loved it because it started on cold mornings and worked as hard as they did. Sure, it's no modern screamer, and some might say comparing it to today's engines is like apples to oranges. But that's not the point. Back in its heyday, the Stovebolt 235 was a lifeline. As America modernized, the Stovebolt adapted, showing that an old design could still deliver as cities grew and highways expanded. It stands as a reminder that reliability isn't just about horsepower or flashy engineering. Sometimes it's about faithful service. Year after year, the Stovebolt's legacy lives on in the warm memory of countless families who counted on it to get by. 2. Ford 300 inline-six. If ever there was an engine that could survive the apocalypse, it's the Ford 300 inline-six. Introduced in the 60s and lasting through the 90s, this torque-heavy workhorse powered pickups, vans, and industrial equipment without breaking a sweat. It's called indestructible for good reason. Neglect it, abuse it, run questionable fuel through it. Somehow it just keeps on running. The 300 excelled at low-end grunt, making it perfect for hauling heavy loads on the farm or towing boats on vacation. Farmers swore by it, construction crews put it to the test daily, and weekend warriors relied on it to power their adventures. While it never set any speed records, it didn't need to. Its legacy was forged in the ability to outlast almost anything else on wheels. Critics might say it's too agricultural or lacks sophistication. But that's like calling a hammer too simple. Sometimes simple is precisely what you need. The 300 inline-six proved that reliability and longevity can outweigh flashy stats. Even as modern engines push boundaries, the Ford 300 remains the legendary yardstick by which tough, no-nonsense durability is measured. It's the engine that refuses to die. One Chevy small block 350 V8. The Chevrolet small block 350 is the engine that defines American reliability. Introduced in the late 60s and refined over decades, it quickly became the standard bearer for V8 longevity. You'd find it under the hoods of pickups, family sedans, muscle cars, hot rods. Just about anything with four wheels and a bow tie badge, and sometimes without. Its simple architecture, abundant parts, and decades of refinement made it a mechanic's dream and an owner's best friend. Run it hard, run it long, the 350 just keeps coming back for more. Enthusiasts love that it's easy to rebuild and upgrade. Critics might say it's too common and not exotic enough, but that's missing the point. The 350 earned its fame not by being fancy, but by being consistently good at getting the job done. It's America's iron workhorse, the engine that made folks smile at the turn of the key, generation after generation. When you think of a dependable American V8, the Chevy 350 likely springs to mind first. It's not just an engine, it's a piece of our national soul, humming away beneath the hood and reminding us that reliability never goes out of style. From the Mopar Hemi to the Chevy 350, these 12 engines define the backbone of America's car culture. They're not just numbers on a spec sheet, they're part of our collective memory and mechanical heritage. Sure, we can argue about which should rank higher or which deserved a spot, but that debate keeps our automotive passion alive. As the future shifts toward electric motors, let's tip our hats to these classics that ran us through decades of work and play. They remind us that longevity, simplicity, and grit will forever be cherished qualities under any hood. Thanks for joining me on this journey through automotive history. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.